funding. We've been waiting on this presentation all day.
Oh, boy. Well, keep in mind, I'm not the expert, but I do have some information to share.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and pass out a little packet that I put together for you. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Eric. So I'm here to provide the board with a little update on the work that's being performed by the Michigan Trial Court Funding Commission, as well as the work group on alternative funding for trial courts. What started the commission and how did we get here? It was a 2014 case called People versus Cunningham. Thank you. And in that case, the Michigan Supreme Court ruled that legislative statutes did not give the courts broad authority to order defendants to pay operational costs, that those costs had to be specifically outlined in statute and authorized by law. So that ruling jeopardized major funding sources for courts. Just to give you a ballpark idea, for our court, it was roughly close to about $500,000. So in 2014, a lot of the courts had to stop charging court costs, that's what we call it, to align with that Michigan Supreme Court ruling. In order to address that issue, the legislature adopted a temporary fix and created a sunset, and that temporary fix was Public Act 352 of 2014. And we had a couple other cases, and like that temporary fix got sunsetted in 2017. 2019, we had a case titled People v. Cameron, and that challenged the constitutionality of the temporary fix. And the Michigan Supreme Court in that case decided to deny the application for leave to appeal and urged the legislature to act on the ruling of the 2014 case and create a permanent fix. In 2023, the Supreme Court heard another application to leave for appeal in another case titled People v. Johnson, argued that the amendment or the temporary fix to MCL 769.1K, which is the statute that allows us to charge those operational costs, was unconstitutional, and that it really undermined the judicial neutrality of the court and the ability for the court to fulfill its constitutional role. So 2017, we're looking at a sunset provision. Michigan legislature adopted another amendment to that statute with the sunset of 2024. And in that 2017 legislation, which is Public Act 65, they not only extended that sunset, but then created the Trial Court Funding Commission, and that commission was tasked with analyzing the trial court costs, revenues, and providing legislative recommendations to improve it on a permanent basis. In 2019, the Trial Court Commission, Funding Commission, released a report with 5 major recommendations. The first one was to establish a stable statewide funding system. The second was provide all court technology needs. Third was to establish a uniform assessment and centralized collection system. And fourth was to move toward a uniform employment system. And the last one was to establish a transition plan for the new court funding model. In 2022, and this is all very important just to kind of give you an idea, we started this in 2014, and so now it's 2022. The Michigan Judicial Council responded to the recommendations of the Trial Court Funding Commission by creating and forming a work group on alternative trial court funding, and that work group was responsible for identifying the implementation plan. The council created 4 additional teams to develop that financial plan, and to support the efforts, the State Court Administrative Office hired Monair, and I know I'm going to mispronounce this last name, Kosterson, to collect and analyze the data related to the operating costs, the local funding contributions, and the case-related revenues. In December of 2024, shortly after Eric started, we started going into data collection. There was a platform that was created where the local funding unit and the courts were required to share data with Monair, including contact information, case management and financial data. We had to provide cost allocation plans and facility information, along with wage, benefits, FTE authorizations, and job descriptions. In mid-June, so just a little month ago, the courts received notice that the analysis was complete and the data was provided. I gave you a copy of the funding model that I retrieved from that data dashboard. One's for the state and one's for our local funding unit. So the first page is the state, the second page is our local funding unit. And I know I just handed it out or redistributed it. I don't know if you've seen this information before, but essentially the funding model tells you what the total operating costs are statewide for the local courts, and that figure is $1.22 billion. The maintenance of effort is one of the recommendations that the work group has suggested, which is what portion will your local funding units contribute to the court system? And that amount is $702.43 million. The courts also received a mix of different funding sources from state to federal grants, and that amounts to $277.93 million. With collections and other court operating revenue, we have about $243 million that we receive. The second page is the Berry County funding model, kind of following the same format. Your operating cost for the trial court is $6.44 million. The proposed maintenance of effort is $3.61 million. What we receive in state and federal grants is $2.11 million. And the amount that we collect through collections and other court operations is $720,000. You'll see in this funding model that there are little plus boxes underneath the categories, so you can expand to kind of get a general idea. Take a look at that, and if we had questions, we had the opportunity to ask the folks at Monair, like, how did you get this, where, and just get more into detail, which we did. Dave, Daisy, and I did meet with them to talk about one of the judicial revenue line items because it really didn't line up. Statute states that circuit and district court judges, while the county contributes or pays $45,724 for their wages, we get that reimbursed back from the state. And so there was one year where that number was roughly $42,000, and that's not right because statute says you receive 45. And it all depends on when the funds are coming into the treasurer's office and when it gets posted. So you could have a decrease in one year, but an increase the following year, and you just know that that's for the previous year where you noticed that decrease. In this funding model, too, we can identify on the top right-hand corner, you'll see that the court type, we can select each court type to narrow down specifically what the operating costs and the maintenance of effort would be for that particular office. So the child care fund is listed, the circuit and probate's listed at the district court. And in this glimpse, you don't get to see like the problem-solving courts, but there are other resources or categories that you can select. Do you have any questions so far? No? That's a lot of money, isn't it?
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is a lot of money. So, work group recommendations. I also provided you with a copy of the recommendations, and that's page 3. This is a preliminary recommendation that came out in mid-June. And the work group is looking at addressing the operational costs, funding distribution, assessments, and collections. I'm not going to go through each one of those categories because, as you can see, it's 4 pages long and it's pretty detailed. They are preliminary recommendations, but surface level, under the operational cost funding model, they're looking at requiring that local maintenance of effort, and you saw for Berry County that was that was it $3.61 million. It also requires the use of the court operating resource report to assess staffing needs and operational costs for the court. So during the data collection, the court staff, including the judges, had to participate in a time study for a period of 2 weeks. I know Sarah's team also had to participate in that. And we indicated every 15 minutes what we were working on and how we were working, and if we needed additional time to be able to complete a task. And my understanding is they used all of that data to then kind of come up with a court operating resource report. Judges currently do something very similar. It's called the JRR, and that dictates how many judges a county will need. And if there's need for additional judges, they'll amend a statute or indicate that in legislation and assign a judge. Right now, Berry County, we're sufficiently staffed with judges. There is no recommendation for us to increase or decrease in judgeship. Other counties, there was recommendation to increase judges and others to not necessarily to reduce the number of judges through attrition. The other portion of that is to establish a formula for sharing facility costs and debt between the state and the local funding units. One of the meetings that I attended not too long ago, there was conversation about how do we determine that. And I remember hearing one of my colleagues say, well, according to what they're telling us, we would have to anticipate those needs 2 years in advance in order to have them be placed in a budget. So we just submitted our 2026 trial court budget to the county, and at that meeting they were stating that if this occurs, we would be submitting a 2027 budget to the state and to the county for those state appropriations. That's, really far down the road kind of glimpse at what do you anticipate you're going to need, both for facilities, for operational costs, assuming there are no additional changes in legislation requiring more from the court and funding units. The second recommendation is funding distribution, and that establishes a state-managed trial court fund to collect and redistribute revenues for court operating costs, and then that also implements a system for legislative appropriations, distribution of funds, and monitoring those expenses. We're somewhat familiar with that already with the child care fund, with the front of the court, and the problem-solving courts. The state is our fiduciary, and they pass along federal dollars or state dollars to run those programs. We submit to them quarterly reports, case information on a regular basis. The third recommendation is a uniform assessment and indigency determination. And here they're trying to standardize cost calculations and alleviate pressures on the judges for determining their own, what we would call court costs, to generate the revenues for the local funding units and create a uniform process for determining a person's ability to pay. And before those collections or debts are sent to the state for collection. And the last recommendations, creating a collection system that is uniform and a statewide collection system for the court debt. And I believe what they're looking at is using Treasury for that. So my guess is, it's just my guess, on a local level, we're going to have to provide a lot of do a lot of legwork before we send any court debt or court assessments to the Treasury for collection. And we're going to be required to do a lot of that, determining a person's ability to pay before we even refer or recommend those. How that's going to look, I don't really know. I think they're still working on that. There's a huge group, a team of people that are attending and participating meetings throughout the state and presenting on that information and collecting additional data. So next steps. I mentioned the 2014 legislation that temporarily fixed this problem, and that was extended to sunset in 2024. In 2024, legislature passed Public Act 47 and extended the sunset to December 31, 2026. So we know that the State Court Administrative Office has to compile a report and provide a cost analysis and legislative changes to the legislature no later than May 1st of 2026. And of course, they have that sunset date of December that they're also being mindful on. As I mentioned, there's a lot of work that's happening behind the scenes. I think I was told like 150 different individuals from across different organizations are involved in the work group. And from county admins to treasury to legislative body to local courts. And they're working along with our State Court Administrative Office. Our State Court Administrator, Tom Boyd, is working with the Pew Foundation, and they're holding focus group meetings with our associations to inquire about the preliminary recommendations and get some feedback. I also am aware that the work group is nearing final recommendations, and they hope to have those recommendations to the legislature by October of this year. So what does that mean? I think that means they're going to propose a modification to statute. They're going to make some recommendations on how to implement this. And at the end of the day, the state's going to have to decide whether they have approximately, this is a number that I heard, $235 million to start the project. Again.
Oh my God.
Yeah, a large sum of money.
Well, that was my question, is what's this going to cost us?
Yeah.
Cost us from Berry County?
Yes.
3.61 million, because the maintenance of effort, very much like the Public Defender's Office, they're kind of following that model. Here's your maintenance of effort. Anything additional and above would be funded by the state. And I think that's where you get the 235 million. That's
Is that where we're currently at, is 3.1?
3.61.
Okay.
Those figures are from 2022 and 2023. Those are averages. Something to keep in mind when you're looking at those averages is child care fund fluctuates based on out-of-home placements. If we have a year where we're not placing children, and out-of-home placements include delinquency, so in detention, residential, or foster care. So if we don't have an increased number of cases where we're placing children out of home, then we're not using those dollars, so you're not getting those reimbursements. So that number could fluctuate. I attended another meeting where we were informed that the commission and the work group are recommending that this funding model be specific for court operations, excluding friend of the court, because there's already a funding model with the friend of the court, and that's a reimbursement of 33, contribution on a county level of 34%, reimbursement from the state at 66%. Child care fund, they're proposing that also be excluded from this because there's already a funding model for that. 75% comes from the state, 25% is contributed by the county, with the exception of out-of-home placement. Bless you. With the exception of out-of-home placement. Out-of-home placement is a 50-50 split. And so that would be excluded. Also excluded possibly from this would be your problem-solving courts, because again, they have a funding model in place for that.
Questions from commissioners? It's a lot of information that's got a lot of question marks on it so far, so it's like, this is a preliminary report, not a final report, because we don't really know where it's going yet.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chair, I kind of got a comment maybe. I like this word ability to pay. Okay? Because it sounds to me like we're going to let people off the hook again for poor decisions they've made in their lives.
So,
And I might be wrong on that, okay? But it sounds to me when it says ability to pay, most people are in trouble. How much money do they have?
well, let me give you an example of that.
Okay.
You want me to answer that question?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. That's what I brought it up for, I guess.
Wow, okay. So ability to pay, it's not a new term for us. We currently have to. I don't remember when that came into reality, but I was trying to remember what year that took place. There's been a lot of changes since 2020. There was a jail task force report that changed, and I think you've heard the prosecutor in here before, and maybe the sheriff comment on it, changed several different misdemeanors to civil infractions, tied hands, prevented, reduced the way that the court sets bonds. So we had to, judges or magistrates, there's a presumption that a person will reappear for a court hearing, and the judges have to, and the magistrates have to make a finding that the person is a flight risk, it's going to be a danger to society, and because of these reasons, they can deny a bond or require a cash bond. Well, I don't remember if that's when the determination of ability to pay came into play, but we've had to have this standard. And what that entails is we have a financial statement that we have to collect from defendants. And in that financial statement, we look at household income. I can talk about this because I'm really doing this right now. Since our staff attorney became our quasi-judicial officer, I've been the one filling in this capacity. So I meet with the individuals. I ask them quite a few questions about whether they're working. I've recently started requiring them to provide me with resumes. I want to see what their work history looks like, because a lot of people work under the table. And if they don't have the ability to pay, those are the individuals that are probably receiving public assistance, are on disability, are on Social Security for retirement benefits or whatnot. That's what we look at when we're determining ability to pay. If someone's working under the table and they're not paying on their court assessments, then we have the ability to show cause them and bring them into court. And the judge can then find them in contempt. If they're found in civil contempt, the judge can order up to 93 days in jail, an additional fine of $7,500. We try not to get to that point because it really doesn't benefit the jail to have a bunch of people in there for civil contempt. But we really try to work with people to get them to pay on their court assessments so that they're complying with the order that they've been ordered to comply with.
Yeah, so what about the people driving around with 7 suspended licenses and they get pulled over and they're not held accountable anymore, right? Am I wrong about this? Or am I just jumping to conclusions that...
Seventh one, we can take them.
Well, I think the first one isn't the first one, and it's been a minute since I've reviewed this, and I can give you a more firm answer once I look this up, but I believe the first one is a civil infraction, the second one is a misdemeanor, and then they're brought before the court. So the first one, there's a financial penalty. The second one, it's a misdemeanor, and they could potentially come into court, get on probation, be ordered assessments, state administrative costs, depending on the offense, there might be a crime victims assessment. And
Well, there's a reason why there's only 46 people in jail, right? When there used to be 105.
Well, there's a lot of different factors that weigh into that, right? So we only handle cases that are brought to us, right? So we don't go out looking for cases. That we rely on law enforcement. Law enforcement conducts their stop or their investigation, submits to the prosecutor a report. It's the prosecutor then decides whether or not to charge them. Once they decide to charge them, that's when we get involved. The court gets involved.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate the presentation.
Well, you're welcome.
Any additional questions from commissioners?
Do you think, Inez, that this deadline they have might be extended again? Or do you think it will come to fruition in 26?
It would be a complete guess. I know that MAC is really, my understanding is the counties are really pushing this to pass. So they could put enough pressure on the legislature to find the money. I don't know. It all depends on the what finances look like in Lansing. My guess is if they don't have the revenue, they will extend the sunset. That's my guess, but who knows?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
You're very
A
welcome.
lot of details and a lot of question marks, but it's good to at least have a baseline to start with so we know what's coming, so.
Yeah, and if you want a more in-depth presentation, Tom Boyd, who's our state court administrator, I think he would be more than happy to provide that to the board. At least that's what his staff have indicated. And I know that the county administrator in Monroe would also be willing to add to that.
Perfect.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you. A lot of presentations, good information. Unfinished business, we have none. New business, we have none. County administrators report. Okay. Chairperson's report.
You jumped me.
Go. Items for consideration. Let's rewind that, Maxwell.
Chair, I move for the approval of transfers and disbursements, approval of claims in the amount of $178,652.42.
Is there support?
Support.
Motion by Smoker, support by Tunison for approval of claims in the amount of $178,652.42. Discussion. Hearing none. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Carlton.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Getty's absent. Hatfield.
Aye.
Smelker.
Aye.
Tunison.
Aye.
Bassett.
Aye.
And Jackson.
Aye. The motion is approved. Now back to the chairperson's report before I was so rudely interrupted. So, anyways, I have nothing. Vice chairperson's report.
I also have nothing.
All set. Commissioner reports. Commissioner Bassett.
I did attend the substance use disorder meeting yesterday for operations and policy, and Brad Casemore did announce that he is separating from his position as CEO of the SWIMBA, and that was effective 7/11. So, yep.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Carlton?
Tomorrow, 11:30, Commission on Aging, I will be proving that there are certain people who cannot be embarrassed. I will do my interpretation of Beach Santa, drawing from Elvis Presley and Don Ho.
Video.
We can't top that, Mike.
Wow. Mr. Smoker.
I have Freeport Homecoming is this Saturday.
Is it?
And a car show and a bale throwing contest. Sounds redneck to me.
Bale throwing contest.
Yeah.
Well, you got nothing on Delton with our cow plop, so you know we're close. Commissioner Tunison.
I have nothing, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Campbell.
I did attend a health department meeting last Friday in Hastings. continuing to deal with a lot of funding shortages and stuff, so making that very interesting. And then tomorrow I go to Thornapple for a meeting in the afternoon. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Hatfield.
Commissioner Getty, Commissioner Colton, and I attended the event for the Berry Community Foundation last week, dinner celebrating their most
30.
Yeah, anniversary.
That's great.
And, we were there primarily because of the work going into the Nashville Gardens and the food resources with the project on Mill Street. So great event and good recognition.
Good.
Absolutely. Limited public comment at this time. Any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes.
Good morning, everyone. I think I put it off there. Good morning. My name is Kai Gritter, and I'm with Michigan State University Extension. I'm just here really to introduce myself and to thank you so much for supporting MSU Extension. I was hired in, started last week, a new role as a district director, covering Berry, Allegan, Kent, and Ottawa County. So you might have been familiar with my predecessor, Scott Korpak. He has moved on to another organization, but I'm really happy to be here and look forward to partnering with you.
Awesome. It was nice meeting you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for being so patient through a long meeting this morning. So.
It was great. It's great to see the great support in Berry County.
Awesome. Thank you.
Started out with bad news, but it's going to be okay news. I left you a voicemail. Did you get it? An employee that on a motorcycle decided to take on a tanker truck down in Dowling, and last I heard from the state police who's handling the inspection of the truck there, said she was alert and oriented getting into the helicopter, so that was good news. Yeah, it was one of those calls you just, I don't know, you just can't get there fast enough, but nonetheless, it sounded pretty good, and we'll give you another update later on. So it's one of our court screeners down there, so on our way into work.
Screeners was in the accident?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And Road Commission, you gave a pretty good report there, and one thing you left out is we've been working very well with them. Every now and then our guys will give them we drive the roads all the time, and we try to get our guys to report to the Road Commission too where the problem areas are. And then anytime we've ever needed Road Commission, like in a bad accident or something like that, and redirect traffic, they're always there for us, and we appreciate that. Jake does have a podcaster's voice, though, doesn't he? The courts over there, like we used to have a lot of people that were eligible for work release, and we used to have them out at the Charlton Park, the animal shelter and all that. Well, a lot of it had to do with some of the stuff that Inez mentioned too, the driving unsuspended, and they got rid of that. What I always hated, I don't think I ever wrote anybody in my career on it, was a driver reinstatement fee for the Secretary of State. So they go out and they meet all the criteria they need to the courts, and then the Secretary of State put this driver's reinstatement fee in order to get your driver's license back. And they kept their license suspended on that. I don't think I ever wrote for it, but they got rid of that. And then, of course, have been doing really good on do a lot of tethers instead of locking them up inside the jail. So that helps them keep their jobs and keeps them out in the community and active. So we're losing an employee coming up here pretty quick, August 1st, leaving for a better paying job, one of our correction officers. So just keep me on your toes on that type of stuff. All right, have a good day.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Hearing none. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Tunison.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Campbell.
All set. Thank you.
Commissioner Hatfield.
Nothing more.
Commissioner Bassett?
Well, there's a lot going on in Delton this week, so hope your calendars are clear. Tonight at the Moose Lodge, we are having a fundraiser with Rotary. We're going to put a webcam at our high school to monitor the weather. And in fact, the chief meteorologist is coming to the event, and there will be a lot of fun things to do. So we're thinking this is a wonderful way really to put Delton on the map, because they will then show the weather from Delton, Michigan.
What's the time and location?
That's at the Moose,
Okay.
and that time is, hang on, I have 3 things tonight. Let me tell you exactly what it is. It is... Okay, that's from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Moose Lodge, and I don't know when the meteorologist is showing up.
Okay.
So, but come and have some fun. We also have a school board meeting tonight, so that's more fun right after that. And then later this week on Thursday night, we have another one of our summer concert series, and that's Thursday, 7 to 9 in our William Smith Park, and it's a Fleetwood Mac cover band. So we're excited about that. And then we also have a girls' night out next week, first annual in Delton, next Tuesday night, the 29th. That will be at our Grove Street Cafe, and Revitalized Delton will be benefiting from that event. We have 30 vendors who will be there, and it's just a fun time in downtown Delton. And then last but not least, I did bring the Cowplock tickets, so anyone who's interested in Cowplock tickets.
Going fast.
Yeah, they do go fast, so you don't want to be without at least one of those. And so that's for the annual fundraiser for our local Delton Rotary, and it's our major fundraiser. So anybody who wants tickets, I have them.
Okay. Commissioner Colton? Commissioner Smelker?
I'm good.
Okay. The only comment I had was next week, I know you guys have been waiting for this as well, Drain Commissioner 101. Everything you wanted to know about drains in under an hour with some time for some Q&A. So put that on your calendar. So normally we get our 5th Tuesday off, but this time we are going to be working for an hour anyways on Monday. So we'll look forward to seeing you then. Thank you all for coming this morning. Enjoy this beautiful stretch of weather. It just keeps coming at us. So have a great day.